Hello, everybody, and welcome to Get Real with Jack and Cindy. I'm Cindy Morrison.
And I'm Jack Wallace. Welcome aboard.
And we have a wonderful guest with us. Leland Chinowth is in the house.
You guys,
Wonderful guest.
happy to be here.
He's like, I'm in the firing squad.
Okay.
I was gonna joke that you guys, this was a new kind of apex for the show, and I was excited for you to get to this level of having this kind of guest. And then I saw on the way here that you had Kristen Chinowth on a few episodes ago. So
Yeah, good
I
luck.
knew that would
Good
backfire.
luck. No pressure.
Jack's gonna make me pay for that.
I mean,
but,
she was an okay guest, Yeah. Well, and it's funny too because you and I do have quite a history. I came on. What was the company? I think I've been alive for 2 years when John and I came on.
Yeah.
It's sort of funny. I mean, it's been 2 years. Yeah. So it was such a different company then.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Much smaller, much kind of more mom and pop kind of
Mhm.
shop, and literally mom and pop.
Literally mom and
Lee
pop
and
were there.
Cheryl,
That's
and I would go to Cheryl's office, and she would coach John and I, and really work with us. And then we were over in that office quite a bit, and you and I had sort of a reputation for giving each other a hard time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were texting yesterday. Do we need to warn the audience so they don't think that we hate each other?
Yeah. And I don't know. I'll try to make that not seem like it, but but we were out in the hall doing our bickering, and your mom came out and said, "You guys have got to stop this. Everyone's gonna think you're serious, and then what are we gonna do? People are gonna start leaving." I'm like, "It's not that bad, is it?" So
Yeah.
if it does, it's all in good fun.
We had a
It's
couple
not-
agents signing on to the company over between us and another company, and I thought, man, it's starting to go well. And I see you through this glass door, and I said, if he stops in, whatever he says will be at my expense. But he is joking. And then you came in and said,
Whatever.
You guys will love it. You're nice enough to, nice sales pitch for the company. You'll love it here. Everybody's so friendly, and it's a fun place to work.
Everybody but him.
You'll love everybody here except for Leland. He's kind of a pain. But they
came.
They did come
They
to the
did
company.
come.
So
Yes,
with us.
they
So
did.
yeah.
No, we've had a good time. That's the thing too. It's like, I think that's been one of the greatest parts about this company is that we deal with a lot of we take our job very serious. We do a lot of very serious things, but as a company, we really do try to have a good time and keep it as light as possible. And it's
Definitely.
fun. I mean, you want to have a reason to go to the office. I've never understood, I worked for Charles Fadre years ago. I always say that, but it's the truth. How I started, and it was so funny because his shop was just crazy. Like there were all kinds of wigs and stuff in the back, and people would just put on a random wig. And it was just, but it kept it fun because it was always crazy and fast paced. I think you have to have a good time. You just have
Absolutely.
to. Yeah.
Well, for those of you who may not know about Chinowth and Cohen, let's kind of do a little deep dive about our brokerage and who you are, Leland. So first, let's start with who you are.
Yeah. Leland Chinowth. I'm our company president, co-owner. The company was started in August of 04 by my mom, Cheryl Chinowth, and stepdad, Lee Cohen. I grew up going by Lee. After a few years of that, it's like, I got to switch to the birth name Leland. He didn't have one to switch to. So he kind of pulled rank on that.
So you had Lee Chinowth and Lee Cohen.
Lee Chinowth, Lee Cohen. We were getting each other's calls and all that. It was confusing. So then I came on, got my license just a few months later, April of 05. And then was just in sales only. We really didn't have much staff at the time. We started with a group of 30 agents, but even by the time I signed on, we were close to 100. So it was rapidly growing. And like Jack, said, it was all about attracting a culture, positive, and sometimes you have to stick to that, even though there's, someone that produces a lot, it doesn't fit our culture. We really stuck to that. And I think it's kept, as we've gone from 2, 3, up to 700 agents, and expanded 3 years ago to Oklahoma City and have about 140 agents there. We like attracts like, and we've just really been able to, I think people feel that in the company that they were, that around people they enjoy working with. So then about 5 years later, my brother, who's Taylor Chinowth, came to work.
Who had been like running errands and stuff.
Yeah, I started I was in medical school in that fall. They started the company, and while I was studying for my boards and hating, it was just not for me in general. Long story short, but going into my third year of med school, when they started this, I was our Owasso. We had just opened our third office. It was South Tulsa Midtown, and then Owasso. And we didn't have a front desk hired yet. So I went up there and kind of answered questions and answered phones and kind of half studied for the boards and so forth. But then I started selling that summer. As soon as I got my license, I started selling, and I was our rookie of the year. And sold just under 12 million worth of, in volume of homes that year.
Under 12 million.
Yeah, it was
Genetics are strong.
It was, I owed about 95,000 in student loans after just 2.5 years of med school. And I thought, man, I'm making this back a lot quicker. I like this direction of the money flow better. And it was an easy decision. You could tell something, special was happening here. And Cheryl had been, first day of work, she says, it's not Mom, it's Cheryl at the office. So Cheryl was the top agent in the state for many years in residential when Lee Cohen was in commercial, and he had worked at Coldwell Banker before and was sort of known for being able to do anything, whereas I do commercial real estate myself now, but you tend to sort of specialize. That's my background. I've done some medical offices and some retail, but he can do industrial. He can do, a lot of more creative stuff because he just has so many years of experience working around residential agents that they bring in stuff from all directions. So they had a really good synergy between the two of them on, kind of a boutique luxury real estate, residential side, and then the commercial side. But they always played well off each other that way, and actually started the company before they considered dating or anything. And then I came to work for him, and a few months into that, Lee Cohen took me to lunch and said, but he didn't have to ask me. I was, like 24 years old, but he said, I was wanting to take your mom on a date, but I just want to make sure you're comfortable with it. And of course I said no, just to mess with them for a little bit. And then the rest is history. We were excited to see that. And it's been fun to work together as a family. My brother,
quite the powerhouse. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And then my brother went back to law school a few years ago. So he helps with, we've got some other companies tied into real estate. We wanted the one-stop shop. So he and I both have our mortgage and title licenses as well. So we started Home Team Lending in January, just with Taylor and I owning that. And then the four of us are all partners in Elite Title Services, which is, does our closings. And then we manage about 520 properties for American Property Management. So somebody needs to lease, they can lease and then come back and buy later with our, one of our other buyer reps. So,
gosh, don't you feel like an underachiever?
I know, right?
And I'm fine with that.
And it's nice that it's because we are a boutique that is large and locally owned, but you can really have everyone on speed dial because we're all connected. And I love that.
I think that's a really interesting point too, is that I think it would be great if you could talk to our company and its structure and how that compares when like the public or other agents are looking at Chinowth and Cohen. How does that compare to a national franchise or, a more small specialty, organization that's just a few agents? How do we fall and what are the advantages to that for the public and for an agent coming on board?
Right. Yeah, we like to, it has changed as we've grown as well, but we like to think we kind of have the best of both worlds here for a realtor because we're in 4 of the largest referral networks for incoming and outgoing referrals. And we hear this from a franchise, won't name any specifically, but they'll say there's, our franchise, we have one in every state or in these 20 states. And
we're international.
There's only, only Chinowth and Cohen's only in Oklahoma. But they don't tell you that about 84% of state-to-state referrals are going from one independent company to another because they're about 84 or 5% of the market.
So say that statistic one more time because I think that's a really important number, and it's easy to get lost for people who don't understand what exactly we're talking about.
Right. And important for the consumer.
So when we talk about relocation, we talk about referral, we're talking about going one agent in one market refers to another agent in another market, their client.
Right.
And so some of the bigger franchise have their own referral company, but you have to stay within that network.
Yeah.
But with the independent, it can be any independent and any national, right? It does give you 84% penetration compared to 16. Wow.
That's and it's really limited because
I haven't heard that statistic before. That is very interesting.
That's a couple-year-old statistic, but it's got to be pretty close because if you think, we have
You're coming here without real-time information.
Yeah. You got 2 or 3, pretty sizable franchise companies in Tulsa, but they even, if they refer out of state, they don't send it to the other one either. So it's only that company to that company. They don't. Whereas, there's actually 400 plus companies in Tulsa, and there's 3 or 4 franchises. The rest are there's a bunch of mom and pops.
That's very interesting. So you really think about the pure number play Yeah.
You see the big presence of those companies, but the actuality isn't that.
And sometimes when you do that referral within a franchise, it's just whoever answers the phone first. One of the things I like about our referral programs, which we'll get into a little bit more, is you really are picking the best of the best. You're making sure that it fits with your client. You get to speak with them first. I think that really helps quality control, that you know your client's going to be taken care of in another city or state or country.
Yeah, you're in a network where we have a reload director, Heidi Klein, that interviews.
She's awesome.
Other reload directors at these selected companies. And there's luxury real estate that runs luxuryrealestate.com that we get leads for $750 and above in Tulsa. It's higher. It's
$750,000
and above. Yeah. But the largest in the world is Leading RE, leading real estate companies of the world. They're in 72 countries. So when they talk about being global, that is the largest. That's double roughly any single franchise. And that's just one of our 4 referral networks is Leading RE. We get a couple $100 million just in incoming, and not to mention outgoing referrals that we send to other places just a year from Leading RE alone.
Wow.
And that's them and Luxury and Realty Alliance, they pick generally just one large independent kind of leader in each market. And that's their person getting all of it. That's the kind of tip of the spear for where they go into markets, and that's us for Oklahoma City and Tulsa. So
wow. So like you talked about all the smaller organizations, but for this market, for those particular leads, we are the people.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, it's exclusive to you. Kind of have to earn the business. And when we first started, another independent had it for years, and I think you can manage it different ways. I think a lot of times companies, this is a little bit in the weeds, but talking to realtors, a lot of times companies, they say, hey, we brought the lead. You have to pay 25, 30. Some of these reload companies are charging 40% commissions.
I had one
off
that was
the top.
43% that they charged for relocation.
That's a new high.
Out
I've
of
heard
my
42 and a half,
commission.
but 43 is a new. Yeah. So that comes off the top. And then a lot of companies in general, and we know others in other states that do this, they say we just split what's left rather than the agent getting, the predominance of the money like usual. They even take that down to try to recoup something for the company, because that 40% or 30% is going out of state to whoever referred it, and they're in a reload company to cover this,
But it's business you potentially would not have had, or you would not have potentially had without that referral. So you can look at that in 2 different ways. It is a hard one, but it's maybe you have to be more choosy sometimes whether you accept it or not, because it's got to be something that you think you can actually sell in a reasonable amount of time without a lot of over the top effort, so that it makes that worth the which usually those leads are more quality properties, or buyers.
Oh yeah, they're I think the average that we got incoming, the average house in Tulsa I think last year was 285 to 300,000, and our average was close to 600,000 from Leading RE. So it's a double.
Yeah.
So there's 4 networks that we work with to do referrals, reloads, all that. So name them again.
They're leading real estate companies of the world. Realty Alliance, which is comprised of companies that sell $1 billion in sales a year or more. So we were in or 2 or 3. we were in a room, where we were it's the one network we go to where we are, we're in the largest kind of these 4 sections, but we're the smallest company in the largest, and there's companies in there that do 5-6 billion in sales.
Wow.
But that's another one that's exclusive, kind of one to each market. And then we're in Real Trends, which I've always called sort of the Consumer Digest version. It's a lot of analytics and real trends. It's a lot of just what's happening next. It's led by Steve Murray, who, he's one of the leaders. And when any company merges with another one, they use him to kind of broker those sales. And he just kind of knows what the moving pieces are. And then the previously mentioned the luxury, which is also called Who's Who in real estate,
and that's the luxury board of regents.
Yeah.
And that's what we
Jack
do.
and I both are on the luxury board of regents.
And it's interesting is we tour houses every other week, or depending, or every month, of higher end listings with each other and help each other to figure out marketing potential or connect. We've had a lot of inside sales because of that. But then also, like, I went to Washington DC whenever Lee and Cheryl got the Lifetime Achievement Award from Regions, and I ended up meeting an agent from Scottsdale and
like 3 months later, I did a $3.5 million referral
In Florida?
in
Scottsdale,
Scottsdale, Arizona.
yeah.
You had another
But I
recent
met
one
them. Yeah, I did have another one in
through
Florida.
Leading RE, I believe.
Yeah,
That was
So
6 or 7 million in Florida. Which
And
is,
I have to tell you, whenever I'm on a luxury listing, to be able to tell them that I'm on the luxury board of regents, that the regents are going to come through and tour your house. We're going to get feedback from them that maybe I haven't thought of, but also they may have that potential client for you.
And it
So
being a
it
national
really is a benefit.
organization.
Yes.
You know, it's like one thing if it was just inside our company, which would be amazing, but the fact that we do have available all that network, and like I have a blue book, I call it the real estate blue book, because it is every agent that is in that network throughout the United States. And so you can go market by market, and then you can go in and search and drill down on what type of houses they sell, what areas they're selling in. And so like when you're specifically asking to refer someone to this particular person, and I usually call them first and say, before we go through that, and just say, is this something you want to do? This is a story. And then we can talk back and forth, because I take it very personally whenever I'm sending somebody and I'm saying, this is the best of the best, I think, in that market. I don't want them to get there and then go, no, they weren't.
I did the same thing. I had a college professor seller. They had bought the house through me years ago. And then more recently, and her husband's an engineer. So these are very analytical, detailed people. And she said, I'd really want you to interview them. So when they moved back to Dallas, we use Ebby Halliday, I think, is our kind of preferred. It's a huge company with, I think, 11 or 1,200 agents there in North Dallas. And I actually worked with Heidi, our reload director, and their reload director, and actually did phone interviews with 2 or 3 until
it's not just like we pick up a phone and say, here you go. And then through the process, I keep checking in and see what, like as much as you can. Sometimes like some of them, if it's building a house, there's not a lot you can check in, and you kind of, but like, on the 30-day closing transaction, where are we? Have you had this happen? But, asking the questions that the public may not know to ask. So then you're thinking about, you've got a high performing realtor here and a high performing realtor there with your back in the transaction. So it's hard to get better representation really than you get when you go through that.
And knowing this exists, I'd like to tell our agents, and it goes for pretty much any agent anywhere, is if you're at a company that has this large referral network, we know who the best person in Billings, Montana is, or who the best, wherever.
Right.
When you know of a friend or family member moving, it doesn't have to be in or out of Oklahoma. It could be moving anywhere to anywhere. We're a lot better than a shot in the phone book. We've at least vetted and had experiences with,
and you need to give to get. So it's like, you really do. Everyone goes, I never got anything from anybody now, but if you're sending the referrals, you're going to start getting the referrals. It's like, it's really about letting people know you have that capability to do that, so that they understand. And then whenever you start doing that and sending it, you get known and they want to send it back because they want you to keep feeding them. So it's a great thing. I will say, are you a little bit like, how is this whole, as far as the listing side goes on referrals, it shouldn't be too different, but we're going to see what this is on the buy side, because so much of this is based on the fact that the buy side gets a certain commission and then the percentages. But if we start playing with that, that's going to get a little bit different. Are they starting to talk about that nationally, about how that changed?
I bet so.
Yeah, they're talking about
even if it's behind closed doors.
Yeah. Within the last month, I've been in New Orleans at Realty Alliance and Denver at RealTrends, and the settlement is a big topic. And I'm actually speaking at a reload company 2 weeks from now, and they want to talk about that too. But it's not specific to reload there, because if the buyer side goes down, X percent, it's going to be a proportionate decrease most likely for reload, because the agreements are written. You're paying 30% or 43% of whatever you collect on the buy side. So it's really not a question of if that's, it's going to be a proportionate decrease.
If I'm looking at my bottom line, and now my commission has come down, and now you're asking me to go up in my my percentage on that, you may have to get competitive and come down on what you're getting as a referral company for me to make it worth my time and just to break even.
Exactly.
Because we spend a lot of money marketing properties or driving people around. So it's going to be an interesting, that part of it.
You may show somebody a house for 2 years, and suddenly they find it 2 years in, and that's a big time and gas commitment.
One thing I really love, though, when you just talked about is
you do, Taylor does, Lee and Cheryl both do. You guys are constantly, probably more than you want to. I always joke that my friend Kristen is on the road and doing concerts, but you guys travel almost as much as she does. I mean, because you're constantly trying to get information, help with information. And so like on this, whenever people start talking about the national argument, it always makes me laugh. I'm like, you have no idea how much more checked in our local owners are about the national trends, because you actually are the ones on the boards and doing those things. So talk a little bit about that and what you like about that, or what the benefit of that is for the consumer here and the agents here.
Right. Yeah. I mean, for one, Tulsa is what they call at these conferences a lagging market. The trends, the bubble that burst in in San Francisco and New York, it happens on the coast. And then slowly 5-6 months later, we're affected by the recession. So not lagging
in growth, but lagging in when the trends hit us.
Yes, we tend to 3 to 6 months, something will happen on the coast.
Our identity crisis is Tulsa. We think that means that we're lagging behind everybody else. But you're saying we're lagging the good and the bad.
In a good way.
It's really made Tulsa a very stable and predictable in real estate is good. You want to know when you're buying a house, we have a good historic 3 or 4% average increase in our asset that we just bought every year. We really are not reactive. I think it's conservative buyers in general that aren't going to, we saw some price increases through the COVID and those kind of the low inventory markets that we've had.
Kind of the first time that really we had
first time we ever participated in any level of hysteria.
It felt good until it kind of went, whoa.
It felt good until it didn't, right?
Sugar high.
Until there was no houses left to sell. It's just really the lack of inventory.
Yeah.
And that's what's led to a lot of this sort of perfect storm thing with the settlements is, as inventory is now increasing, sellers are not thinking, man, this is a really easy process. But we just spent the last couple of years, guilty ourselves, I'm sure some of our agents that were on Facebook going, look, I got 10 offers in 10 minutes. Look how easy this job is. And that was a snippet of time. And now we're back to, time on market's increased a lot. You need people to market, do opens and so forth. And in general, I think most companies at these conventions are saying the same reason that you wanted to pay a buyer cooperating broker before is nothing's changed, except that they're taking it out of our MLS and it's less transparent. Nothing's actually changed in what anyone here is doing or the value they're providing. So we heard that really quick. And in general, we've had builders from this market go down to Dallas where they also work and say, hey, can I pay less now that this? No, I mean, we're not worth any less. Why would we do that? So, I mean, I think
that's interesting because you were talking about a lagging market that just came to me. So really what's happening right now is this is a lagging response to the market that is not here anymore and not coming back anytime soon.
Right.
I mean, when we had 3% interest rates as a high for all those years and the inventory was just flying. Right. Well, now they're trying to go based on that time period. They're trying to make these new regulations or try to come up with, basic, I do have a degree in business and most people don't know that and it's not important, but it's like basic supply and demand.
Yeah.
And so we've got a real issue now because they're trying to restructure our system based on what was happening with supply and demand 2 and 3 years ago. Now, does anybody right now remember how different it was 2 or 3 years ago? I mean, so it just,
I still have PTSD a little bit.
And I think so that's what we are struggling though right now is because they keep acting like I think they're just not in touch with, or they're legislating, not prosecuting based on, relitigating based on a time period that doesn't exist anymore. So it's interesting. That lagging is an interesting way of looking at it.
It's nice to be able to go to these conferences and have a good idea of, okay, here's this probably 3 or 4 months from now, this trend will happen. And what we have seen the last few months is already happening here is inventory is increasing a little bit. Things have slowed a little bit. It takes a little more work to get things sold.
We're becoming a more normal market, it feels like to me.
We've never had a market like COVID, and we've never had a market like post-COVID because we never had a COVID before. So it's,
the best and the worst kind of in one year. Anyway.
And one thing that I love about you guys being on these boards, being so plugged in, is I love going to our sales meetings because you actually tell us that information. Some people believe information's power. I'm going to keep it all to myself. You guys are open and honest and explain it in a way that it helps us as agents to help our buyers and sellers. And I really appreciate that.
And break it down in a way that we know how to go communicate that when we're on appointments or we're getting phone calls in panic or advice. Yeah, it's a huge deal.
The conferences have, about 15 years ago, we were in a room and they said, so what are you guys doing with your title company? Well, title company? And they're like, you don't have a title company? You've got a few hundred agents. I mean, it's even that idea, like a basic thing that, you know, you think, wow, that's interesting. Like, you just don't know what you don't know. And then they're like, oh, you have to, here's how you do it. Here's who you have underwrite it. And here's who you recommend. And it's quality control. Like when we started mortgage, you know, we had 4 or 5 people in the room that were backed by the, you know, our partners now, and they're vetted. We know that we have a good, strong start that way. So
it's funny too. It started with 2 closers in this office, and it's so funny because John and I were in there more than we were in our own office, and so they kept our little satellite here. I think partially because I'm like, I gotta have that. Like you become so used to having such, and that's the thing with it being within the company. You have such availability of your closer. That's the one thing people don't really get. When you've been with other companies where you leave a message or a phone call and then they get back to you a day or 2 later when you've got a client screaming and yelling, I need to know this now.
Right.
There's an immediacy thing that we get with having that within the company that is so great.
Yeah.